letters SU on the side have been protecting the airspace of our motherland for more than 7 decades now. Sukhoi company designers passed on their talent to the warplanes they created. This talent is the skill to be able to select precisely the right target.
Когда речь идет о безопасности страны,
when it's about national security and defense of the state, the price of an error might prove too high. Of course, this holds true for the defense industry and military science in the first place. In industry as in science, it's important to follow time-tested traditions. A school is the guardian of these traditions. A distinctive feature of aircraft designer Pavel Sukhoi is that his design bureau has always tried to make shortcuts and to be the frontrunner. It was the company policy as it designed planes for pilots called Stalin's Falcons, and now as it makes the T-50 advanced aircraft flight-worthy. The T-50 is a fifth-generation military aircraft. Yet any plane developed by Sukhoi, even this warplane of the future, is intended for ordinary fleet pilots, not just for aces. The key criterion in trials, with test pilots demanding, requesting, persuading and even begging, is that the plane be such as to enable a person of sound mind, an ordinary pilot, so to speak, to easily accomplish absolutely any mission in most adverse combat conditions. As I was descending, my variometer began to give odd readings. I want to say that the Americans have the F-22 and the F-35. We didn't retrace the path of emulating one of these projects, trying to create a balanced system instead, which would secure superiority over potential rivals. T-50 chief designer Alexander Davydenko believes that the plane has integrated the best Sukhoi company achievements. In developing any equipment, especially military hardware, there always comes the important stage when it's necessary to make a spurt in order to achieve something entirely new. Otherwise, your rivals catch up and trample you underfoot before you know where you are. The T-50 has become the first Sukhoi warplane featuring complete digital design. Production of equipment in the modern world is not possible without using computer-aided design or creating a digital mock-up. In working with digital mock-ups, Sukhoi company designers also use supercomputers created at the Sarov-based Federal Nuclear Center. Today we have an opportunity to simulate the behavior of real systems in real operating conditions, which enables us to predict the behavior of the plane. It demonstrates the effectiveness of a digital mock-up. Left screen shows a digital mock-up of a plane. Right screen shows it in a flight test. This video is to show that a large part can be modeled even before the plane is produced as hardware. Our work can be as fascinating as a game. As digital design was introduced, all young designers claimed that computer-aided engineering was much more interesting than drawing. Sukhoi company has an original system to attract young people. This helps it maintain top performance level, despite the natural change of generations. There are many young people both in the design bureau and on assembly line. This is the Yuri Gagarin aircraft plant in Komsomolsk-on-Amur. Not show the T-50 assembly shop because it's a top secret plant. However, the T-50 has integrated much of what was used in developing the Su-35, which is assembled in this shop.
А вошел в ваш район, прошу снижения. До верхней кромки облачности по вашему посадочному.
Каждый инженер,
Today, every engineer, technologist, policymaker and production foreman is integrated in the company system. They have a good grasp of digital mock-ups. The Soviet Union, production began at restricted access experimental companies, and later a package of technical documents on the aircraft was passed to a production facility. Work them to match its manufacturing capabilities. Batch production technologists, together with production designers, would take up the project and in a very critical approach, would mold it into available technological forms. At the present time, prototypes are manufactured at a batch production enterprise from the beginning, to account for existing technologies. Even as we were developing the fifth generation plane, we implemented the so-called single startup procedure. We forwarded a package of documents in electronic form to the manufacturer and simultaneously completed nearly all technological preparations. It was a consolidated effort of the production plant technologists and the Sukhoi Design Bureau specialists. As soon as we had accomplished it, we had to consolidate all this into one company. We were no longer merely a design bureau. We lived one life with the production facility. It's a synergetic effect from merging into one company. Price optimization alone saved us millions of dollars. An earlier government policy was to order chief designer to build such and such plane, never mind the cost. At present, Sukhoi company cannot afford it. Otherwise, it might face bankruptcy. With a permanent austerity budget, any government will only finance realistic projects, not just beautiful, modern or fashionable ones, but realistic projects, meeting the cost-quality principle. Sukhoi company is just a firm offering cost and quality effective projects, and it delivers quickly. Least number of flight tests, maximum workload on the ground. Taking off. Thanks to this approach, the T-50 was developed in just 8 years, a short time for the aircraft industry. The T-50 development involves a tremendous number of test benches. All the work runs on test benches, and flight tests only deal with what was confirmed by bench test results. Designers have been working jointly with test pilots almost from the beginning of the project to develop the new aircraft. Pilots are directly involved in the development of new planes. I recall a line from Vladimir Vysotskyy's song, "I've known you since I saw your schematics." Of course you know the plane, yet it's only a flight simulator that lets you see how the plane can fly. Ready for takeoff. It's the designers of military aircraft who are the first to start its virtual flight. The Su-35 is the first multi-role single-pilot jet. Enabling one person to combine the function of pilot and operator is a quite difficult task. It requires a thorough drill of the logic of interaction between the man and the machine. Pilot's influence is tremendous, because many things are about ergonomics and man-machine interaction. You want to meet pilots' concrete requests. Setting a course for combat mission. Engineers and pilots differ greatly in their views, and what seems convenient and well executed to the engineer might in fact cause problems for the pilot.
Там больше 2 часов находишься постоянно вот этих перегрузок.
For more than 2 hours, you experience constant G-forces and unnatural spins.
Вот там, в общем-то,
It tires you to the point when you need to briefly switch over to pure oxygen in order to recover yourself. Test bench brings together parts of avionics manufactured at different companies. Have to interact for the first time. It's the designer's job to have them function together as one whole.
Мы можем в день провести
We can run dozens of simulations a day and launch as many targets as we need.
проверку
We
сложности.
can check out the complex modes which can hardly be done in real flight, simply because they are too dangerous.
Что-то я теряю высоту.
I'm losing altitude. Slightly, of course. Okay, I'll try to capture the glide slope. I have to gain altitude.
Ну,
I just lost track simply. I lost. Modern combat sets high requirements both for the pilot and the plane. Tasks the pilots have to perform today are far more complex compared with what they had to do only recently. Whereas a plane could fire some 5 different types of missiles before, the present-day range of armaments reaches 42. Furthermore, they have to be fired simultaneously to engage different targets.
вот сейчас я по глиссаде.
Now I'm flying the glide slope too fast. 200 meters isn't good for landing.
Так мы...
Will collapse the struts if I go on. But then I'm not a pilot. It's a computer game in a matter of speaking, but the difference is that it runs on real aircraft equipment. The tradition to minimize the number of flight tests in order not to risk the pilots' lives dates back to Pavel Sukhoi's leadership. Pavel Sukhoi's style of designing warplanes always stood out, became known as Sukhoi's style. It envisioned a maximum of new solutions and a minimum of risks. In other words, it was sound technical conservatism. Sukhoi's surname, which means dry, was a very fitting description of that man. He wasn't a smiling or talkative type, yet he was the hub of intelligentsia, most positive sense of the word. It's in reference to Russian intellectuals. I recall Pavel Sukhoi's phrase, "If a staff meeting lasts more than 20 minutes, it means it was poorly prepared." He made the decisions that proved to be visionary, with a far-reaching effect. It was a vision. Pavel Sukhoi and the team he created had a unique talent. They were equally successful in developing different types of aircraft, intended for various missions, such as fighters, attack aircraft and bombers. It was a distinctive feature of the Sukhoi school.
Сухого всегда отличала новизна.
Novelties always set Sukhoi apart. Every project was cutting edge if you looked into it. Like Winston Churchill's phrase about doing today what other people will think of doing tomorrow. This is what we can do. It seems we can do it. This would explain in no small measure the fact that 60% of all Russian warplanes currently in service feature the letters SU on the side. In designer's work, it can so happen that an uncompleted project yields a far greater effect than an aircraft finalized for batch production. Much of state-of-the-art technology for military aircraft was developed during the work on the T-4 strategic bomber.
И в этой истории
In this project, Pavel Sukhoi had to compete with the very influential Andrei Tupolev, whom he regarded by right as his teacher. In the late 1950s, aircraft carrier groups became the main strike force of the US Navy. Russia needed a supersonic strategic missile-carrying bomber to counteract them. The military badly needed an aircraft, and Pavel Sukhoi outlined the project of such a plane, which basically met the military's requirements at that time. Pavel Sukhoi was a student of the great Andrei Tupolev. It was Sukhoi's team that built Tupolev's legendary ANT-25, which Valery Chkalov's crew flew across the North Pole to America. Now, Sukhoi entered a tough competition with his teacher for a missile-carrying bomber project. Making a long-range supersonic bomber wasn't in our line of work absolutely.
Андрей Николаевич Туполев позвонил.
Andrei Tupolev phoned Pavel Sukhoi saying, "This plane in terms of size isn't your department. You make good fighters, but you can't handle this one." Pavel Sukhoi replied thus, "Dear Andrei Nikolaevich, you are my teacher. I hope that as your student, I'm not bad, So I'll cope with this task.
И
Tupolev, who'd been playing by the same rules offering his version of the bomber, found himself at a loose end. Bomber was codenamed T4, but design bureau insiders called it Sotka, meaning 100. The official name reflected an expected takeoff mass of some 100 tons. Eventually, the mass actually reached 120 tons, but the name stuck. Aviation statistics show that a new plane's novelty coefficient does not normally exceed 30%. For the T4, made up a staggering 95%. During the T4 development, some 600 inventions were made and implemented. It required new pressure, drives, and technologies.
Там уже были отработаны такие вещи, как
Titanium welding was done for the first time in our aircraft making. After the T4 or Sotka made 10 successful test flights, the project was unexpectedly closed. Of course, it was frustrating. Perhaps not just frustrating, it was a great injustice.
судьба.
Fate of the famous designer Pavel Sukhoi is an unbroken line of paradoxes. For example, he was chief designer of a leading design bureau of the Soviet Union, and yet he was not a Communist Party member, which seemed odd at the time. He was awarded Stalin prizes for designing aircraft, yet his planes were not put in batch production for some reason. He sort of stayed in the shadow of his more famous colleagues, Mikoyan, Tupolev, Yakovlev. Unlike them, he was not on good terms with government officials. But when the time of new speeds, the time of supersonic speed had come, it was the Su planes that took the niche, making the backbone of frontline aviation. The G4 used the so-called fly-by-wire system for the first time in our country. Today, it's the key control component of any plane. Cable routings through which commands from the cockpit are transmitted have multiple backup. Reliability is among the key features of Sukhoi planes. I am disconnecting the first coupler to simulate initial failure. As you see, the drive is continuing to work.
Отключаю второй соединитель.
Disconnecting the second, and again it's still working.